Hello and welcome. You are Off the Edge with Matt and Zach, and also our good brother in rock and roll, Darryel Rocky, guitarist for Edge Over Edge. And today we have the honor and the privilege of having in Command Center with us Andrew J. Rausch, also known as Andy. He is an author. He is a film journalist. He's a screenwriter. He is a producer, amongst many, many other things. We're really pleased to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Advocate.
Hey, thank you.
Advocate.
Yes, and an advocate as well. And I do want to touch upon that. But
and a pain in the ass. You can ask my wife.
A real man of our time.
I'm not familiar with a lot of your work. I have to be honest.
Well, no one is. So I'm not even famous in my own household. So.
That's
the kids are like, "Who are you?"
But Darryel brought you to our attention, and it was a little short notice. So I want to thank you again for doing this on short notice. But then I was like, all right, well, who's this Andy guy? And it's like, man, you must be one of the busiest mofos out there. Like you have a lot of credits. You have written nearly 40 books.
Over 40 books now.
Over 40 books.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, seems like you must just be always going.
I am. I'm bipolar, so that's part of it that kind of keeps me going. But I had a heart transplant. I'm sure he told you that.
Yes.
I had a heart transplant a couple years ago. And a lot of what moves me, as embarrassing it is to say, is just the fear of dying and not getting all the things done that I want to get done.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly working on 7 or 8 projects at a time. Part of that's the bipolar, but part of that's also the never-ending race against time.
I get
But
that
no matter
completely.
who you are, when you die, you're going to die with projects not finished. And so when you're working on 8 of them, it just increases the chances that you'll die with 7 or 8 of them unfinished. But
Well, on that inspiring note, thanks a lot.
Right.
I'm not planning on going anywhere, though. So.
No, that's good. I'm glad to see that you're getting healthy after all that.
Fat. I'm getting fat, so maybe too healthy.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you joined the club around here, man.
You know, I discovered a thing today, and I hate to admit it.
Was it your penis?
No. I've been familiar with it for a long time. Side boobs.
Side boob's good.
Yeah, no, I mean, you got your arms. Shit.
Oh, you have side.
Oh,
no,
well, that's
your
not
side
as
boob
good.
is not good.
No.
No. Side boobs. Like what?
Good
right.
Lord.
I have to get them dogs. Get to walking.
Well, maybe the best place to start is because I love books, especially I love fiction, and you've written both nonfiction and fiction.
Right.
Among many other things. But if I was going to dive into, your world of writing, what do you think I should start with? And on top of that, do you have audio? Are there audiobooks out of any of your stuff?
There are audiobooks of, I think, 4 of them now.
Okay.
I generally write crime fiction. It's weird. When I write short stories, they're generally horror or weird, inspired a lot by stories by people like Stephen King. His short stories always had a big influence. But for some reason, when I write fiction, it's always crime.
Yeah.
I mean, I did write a comedy, which was really goofy. It was about Elvis Presley as a CIA assassin, which was kind of fun. But crime is pretty much my bread and butter.
Okay.
And so as far as the one to pick, I don't think a writer ever exactly knows what their best stuff is, because my favorite is the one that gets the worst reviews. But generally, they all get good reviews. The consensus seems to be, I have one called Layla's Score,
Okay.
which is about a hitman, and he goes to kill this man, and when he opens up the shower to shoot this man, he finds that the guy's in there with his wife, and he's cleared the house and everything. He kills both of them, and when he's leaving, he hears a little girl crying, and so then he doesn't know what to do, and we skip ahead 8 years, and now he's raising this little girl as his own.
Oh, wow.
And so it's sort of like a Road to Perdition type of story, but really nothing like Road to Perdition. It sounds like it in that way that it's a hitman and his child.
Yeah.
And just as much inspired by, the Japanese baby cart movies, if you've ever seen those, the samurai movies, which actually inspired Road to Perdition. But so that's it. I wrote it for my little girl, even though the characters are black. It's about my little girl. I mean, the little girl is my little girl, and I had gotten inspired by Stephen King had written Firestarter, basically about his little girl, if she possessed these powers, because he knew that little girl inside and out, and so that I wrote this for my little girl when I thought I was going to die, when I was waiting for my transplant. And so I actually got the transplant in the middle of it. So I was in the hospital for several months. So I had to take and even when I got out, I shook so bad from the medicine. I was afraid I'd never be able to write again, but thankfully the tremors went away. I was able to finish the book, but that's generally the general consensus is that's the best. So
okay. Well, what's your favorite then?
My favorite is this really dark one called Until One of Us is Dead. And the problem is I went with the wrong publisher. I went with a publisher that sells more, which is great, but they marketed it as a mainstream book. So it looks like it could be a James Patterson book, some really mainstream thing. But when people read it, it's really dark, ridiculously dark. And it's unhappy and it really pisses people off. So the reviews are either 5 stars or 1 star, depending on who reads it. And, when the right audience reads it, it's 5 star. But I had a review by a man that said, this is the most vulgar piece of work I've ever read. I would never be friends with the person that wrote this. He says, I can assure you it's gross because I'm 95 years old and I've read a lot of stuff. But the fact that he's 95, I can tell you he's exactly not the audience.
Right.
This is really, really morbidly dark stuff.
So worse than like Chuck Palahniuk or.
It's funny. I'm reading the new Chuck Palahniuk now, and I love it, but it's probably in line with that kind of stuff.
I heard the new one wasn't that good.
I kind of like it, but there was a period there of about 8-9 years where I didn't like anything he wrote. And all of a sudden this year he has a book on writing that's very good. It was nonfiction. He has Fight Club 3, which is a graphic novel, which is good. And he's got this one, which, it's maybe not the best book I've ever read, but it's very good compared to a lot of the things he's put out over the last decade. So it feels like maybe he's coming back. But he is kind of an influence.
Yeah. There was one podcast, we were sitting in here and we were waiting for we had a band in that night. And so I put on, it was the audiobook or short story, Guts.
Right.
Yeah, I put that, they're sitting, so the guys that were coming in late, and
they're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. What are we getting
There's a
into?
guy jacking off at the bottom of a pool? What the fuck?
Well, what's funny is I had to make sure when Darryel set this podcast up that it wasn't last night, because last night I had bought tickets for this online Q&A with Chuck Palahniuk. It was limited to 250 tickets, but it's like a Zoom meeting, and you get the book in advance, and it's autographed, which was cool.
Wow.
But anyway, so we waited online for 40 minutes, and there's no Chuck. But it was fun meeting these crazy people that are fans, and we were having this fun talk. But then the guy comes on, he's like, okay, so Chuck's not going to be here because Chuck tried to get on early and he didn't really know how to use Zoom, and he ended up trying to log in too many times and it locked him out. So we tried to get him a ticket and then he still couldn't log in. So we're doing it again Thursday, which, it's funny that you brought up Palahniuk because it was literally last night. But he is kind of an influence, Yeah. Just because he doesn't give a, are we able to curse?
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't give a fuck. So, and that's
not at all.
And so my earlier writing, I felt like it was kind of tame.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get away from that. I've got a new book I just finished, which is it's sort of like about a white trash mafia that's like in Branson, which is crazy. But it's around the Branson area.
Oh, I'm sold already. I'm sold.
But it's so ridiculous, and it's like sort of like, it's like Goodfellas with white trash. It's like these guys that live on like meth and Mountain Dew, basically. Yeah. And that was crazy. So, but I'm not going with that other publisher with this one.
Right.
I'm still shopping it at the moment. It's sitting with the publisher now, so we'll see. But it's a lot darker. Fun. It's fun dark, okay? It's not morbidly dark.
So that totally reminds or makes me think of, I've always wanted to do kind of like a psychobilly band, but / graphic novel type thing.
Right.
It was going to be called Cock Sinatra and the Trailer Park Mafia.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, see, in this one...
So if you want to flesh that out...
Right. That's pretty cool. In this one...
Just give me a little nod. That's all
In this one, there's a stationary... well, what's funny, your sister-in-law, Amy, was the first person I told about this book, Darryel. So when I thought of it, she's like, you should totally go for that. And So it's about this stationary carnival that actually is sort of the home of this. All the carnies are like criminals. And so there's a line at the beginning where not every carny is a criminal, but every carny at Funland sure as fuck is, And the guy that runs it is also a minister, and his name is Reverend Sammy, and he's sort of the head of it. And it's this really debauched, horrible group of people, but man, it was fun to write.
Oh, I want to read this one.
That makes, just off the top of my head, question for you, because it seems to me like there's two types of writers. Mm-hmm. There's someone that develops a plot and then sticks some characters in there to advance the plot, or there's people that make up some characters and it's like, what are these characters going to do? And then explores the characters. Do you have one way that you kind of...
Mine sort of varies from book to book. Generally, I have an idea, and sometimes I even make out a kind of a plot, a plan of where it's going to go, but it never ends up where I think it's going to go. Yeah, it always ends up being something completely different. People talk about the characters sort of writing their own way, and in a way that does happen. Because there'll be things where I think I had no idea this was going to happen, and now it changes the trajectory of the whole book.
Yeah.
So right now I'm working on a book that I always start close to something, that I know as far as what I've written. So I'm working on a book now that's a crime book that takes place in hell. And so that's kind of fun, kind of crazy,
So would crime in hell be like doing good things?
It's just, won't even go into it now, but it's just this crazy story. This black guy, this white guy, sort of like a Happen Leonard kind of guys, but they're ex-cops. They lost their jobs for being dirty cops. They were working for this crime lord. I put it in Kansas City just because I kind of like writing in these areas that people don't talk about, or people don't. Because there is fucking crime here. There is fucking crime in Branson or where, maybe not Branson, but in that area,
Absolutely.
There's a lot of shit goes down in Missouri, period.
Like, there's not a lot of people in Southeast Kansas where we are, but we have a really high murder rate per capita. It's like, that's kind of
and we
freaky.
Certainly have drugs. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We have a lot of drugs and a lot of shit goes on. And, and people only think of, New York, L.A., but the states they call the flyover states, no one thinks about the shit that goes on in these places. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's prime time we write about them,
Yeah.
So in Layla's score, a lot of it takes place in Tulsa. A lot of it takes place some of it takes place in St. Louis, which was where I got my heart transplant. A lot of it takes place in Detroit, which I don't really know about Detroit. I had to research a little bit in bullshit, but I try to keep it kind of close to home. I was going to write about Independence of all places, but I ended up tossing that book out. Yeah, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it happens.
When my daughter was born, I went outside for a smoke. And there was a guy walking down the street with no shirt on, wind pants, and a sword. And I was like...
That was me. Sorry.
No, it was not you. This dude was fucking
Was that in Parsons?
No, it was in Independence. Here.
My daughter just asked me this weekend, why are there so many people in Independence with no shirts on? Like guys that walk around with no shirts. And I was like, well, when you grow up, you'll understand. It's Independence. What do you want me to tell you?
But I told the doctor, I said, there's a lot of weirdos here. And that was just the one guy that stands out. And there was a couple other things that were just kind of questionable, just all around the hospital. And I thought I was like I thought I was in Vice City for a minute or something.
Because it's just these outrageous, over-the-top characters.
Yeah. There are two things in I'm sure it happens everywhere, but in small town America that cracks me up. The more common one now are the guys or gals walking down the street. Obviously, they've probably got a Bluetooth, connected to their phone.
But they look like they're talking to themselves.
But it's like they're having a heated discussion with somebody.
But then some of them are probably talking to themselves.
Well, that's true. Oh, yeah. The other ones are the ones that are fending off the invisible bees.
Right.
Those are my favorite. Because they're just walking along.
But aren't we all sort of fending off the invisible beast? It's funny because I do work with
metaphorically.
I work with people that have disability. A lot of them mental disabilities, and I do advocate for them. But it's interesting. The farther you get down into that well, where you start to look at my perceptions, and again, I'm bipolar. If I don't take my medicine, I might be that guy out there, with no Bluetooth on, just fending off the beast. And the people that we think are crazy people, because we don't learn about those things when we're in school. Mm-hmm. We don't understand why Billy's doing this thing over here in the corner or that. And so that's always a fascinating journey for me to just stop and analyze my perceptions of what these people are doing or who these people are. Or sometimes the people that make me mad, I have to think, is there Is there some reason behind the things that they're doing, the things that they're saying?
Social-
Or are they just an asshole? And a lot of times they're just an asshole, but even the assholes a lot of times have a reason for why they're an asshole.
It's their social
Right.
their social construct.
Right. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
But so I just wandered us way off topic. I'm sorry.
No, and
It's good.
This is how,
And
this is how
these-
these work. This is how these flow.
Yeah, these are
and-
the roads we like to take. So.
I love something you just said is that we should all be thinking about what's the reason behind why someone is doing what they're doing.
Right.
But
it's
I
hard,
think it is hard. Sometimes you just have a gut reaction. You're like, I don't like that.
Right.
But if we could all take the time to say, like, all right, why? On the surface, maybe I disagree with
What
this
is
or
this?
that, but
That's the neighbor.
Oh, okay.
goodness.
So what else you want to talk about?
Yeah, all right.
Speak.
It's just a hand in the bush.
Well,
So yeah, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
but,
all right.
Hey, we're doing a podcast here.
leave it on the doorstep and get the hell out of here. Well, I don't do this with everybody. I usually don't take notes on people, but you got so much going on. I had to write myself a little index card because I'm just like, man, there's so many things
Jack
I
of all
want to hit.
trades and master of none, as they say.
Yeah.
Though, I have to say that I've been seeing, it's weird, since the transplant, I'm seeing more little breakthroughs in things, I don't expect to ever be Stephen King or, but I am seeing a lot more things that all of a sudden I've interviewed so many people that I always dreamed of interviewing, because I do a lot of interviews for books
Right on.
and magazines. And so I'd chased Quentin Tarantino for 25 years. We met in 1999, but I'd never interviewed him. And so I interviewed him last year for a book I did. I interviewed Shane Black, who's a screenwriter that I really like. He did The Nice Guys and Lethal Weapon. He created Lethal Weapon. But
Predator.
He did the new Predator movie. He
Yeah,
did.
and he starred in the first one.
Yeah, he had a little part in that.
I shouldn't say starred, but
right.
yeah.
But The Last Boy Scout,
Iron Man 3.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I also years ago, speaking of the Iron Man movies, I interviewed Jon Favreau, who directed
Nice.
the other two, I think,
Yeah,
the Iron Man
yeah.
movies. So, but I don't know. It's just been crazy, and these little breakthroughs. Brian Keene is getting to be a pretty big horror writer, and he invited me to be on his podcast last year, and became friends with Joe Lansdale, who's one of my favorite writers. He wrote, he was writing horror stories when I was in high school, which was a long time ago, and, but now everybody knows him for Hap and Leonard. But he had this series called The Drive-In, which was a horror series of books back in the day. And I mean, this guy's amazing. So it's really weird to meet these people and to find out they're just regular people like us, and I don't know what the hell I expected, but
Yeah.
I mean, not Quentin. Quentin talks about himself in third person, but everybody else is just, they're just, and he only did it once in our interview, but everybody else is just normal people.
That just stood out, though, didn't it?
Well, the other person that I interviewed that was weird that really did that wasn't as big of a person. It was Dick Dale,
Yeah.
that
surf
years and
guitar
years
legend.
ago, I interviewed Dick Dale, and even though he's a surf guitar legend, he's not like Elvis, where he's a household name.
Right.
Maybe he should be a household name, but
Yeah.
he's one of those people, and like even Joe Lansdale, these people that you might know in circles, but not everybody knows. But when I interviewed Dick Dale years ago for a book I was doing on Tarantino that I ended up scrapping, he was, when Dick Dale sits down to, and it was just he was the first person
man.
I'd ever met that did that. And it's always stood out to me. So if I can get just a little more fame, you're going to start hearing me go, well, Andy Rausch, But the funny thing, when I interviewed Quentin went so far as to say that something was, it's just part of the Quentin Tarantino mythos.
Oh,
Talked about his own mythos. And I thought, well, that's big balls, man. But right.
I named my son after him, so
There you go.
I mean, sometimes there's something to that, just having that ego so big that you just will things
No.
into existence.
Well,
you
no,
know
and
what
I
mean?
think he's done that, because you're talking
Yeah.
about a guy that didn't finish high school.
Right.
That when he made it, he was working a minimum wage job. And see, the book I did last year is about his first film, which was before Reservoir Dogs. He was working on a small film, and what's funny, he was making it on a minimum wage salary. He paid for it from his video store salary. And what's funny, that movie had him. It had Roger Avery, who went on to, he co-wrote Pulp Fiction, directed other movies like Rules of Attraction, stuff like that. And then Craig Hammond, who's a friend of mine, who went on to direct also. He did a movie called Boogie Boy with Mark Dacascos and some other people, Joan Jett. But it's weird you end up with these 3 people from this movie with a $5,000 budget, that go on and direct big features. I mean, that's insane to me. So anyway, that was what that book was about. I just thought that was really neat.
That's very neat.
So when people knock him, I mean, maybe there are things to knock about him. I think there's things to knock about everybody.
Sure.
But, he is a guy that I see as an inspiration, if for no other reason. Now there's a heart swinging back there. It went from the hand to the heart.
Yeah, well.
Anyway.
Got some crazies upstairs.
No one's going to know what we're talking about.
There's a haunted house upstairs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like during Halloween,
That could be my old heart.
Well,
it could be.
The heart they took out, yeah.
It's well preserved.
A lot of people, when they take their heart out, they didn't do it at my hospital.
I think he's fishing for zombies.
Yeah.
But they give people the option sometimes to hold their own heart after they take it out.
Whoa.
And I would have been like, fuck no.
Yeah,
he didn't ask, and I was cool with it,
That's morbid as shit.
That is morbid. Yeah. So...
And that's a lot for me to say.
I'm morbid. No, I'm completely morbid. Yeah. What was funny, that book I told you about that was so morbid until one of us is dead. So I screwed up and I kind of forgot how morbid it was because I'm very proud of that book. But what was funny was I let my mother-in-law read it, which was probably not a great idea. Because, she was like, well, that was interesting. And, and she's a sweet lady, but I think that wasn't the one to let her read.
Right.
I kind of screwed up on it because I forget that sometimes my mind doesn't go to the same places a lot of other people's minds go, because you hear a lot of people that, if they read a book, see, this is a thing that drives me nuts just in general. People read a book or they see a movie and it's got a bad guy in it that does bad things. And they think that the person that created that does those things or believes those things. But, say you write a book with 100 characters in it. 90 of them are fantastic people that go around and do great deeds.
Right.
10 of them do really horrible things, or even one. Nobody attributes those good deeds to the writer, but people sure as hell think, and the same thing. Okay, so say Quentin Tarantino, he gets knocked because his stuff uses the N-word. Now, I don't particularly think that's a thing to, to love, but I mean, I have characters that say that because that's real life.
Right,
but here's the thing about that I do have a problem with that, is that people get angry about that and believe that he must be a racist, but they don't say anything about all the people that get killed in those, that get murdered. They don't say, I bet he goes around and he's a hitman in real life and murders people. And the thing is, that just cracks me up because characters are characters. And if every character was just like you, there'd be no conflict in your book. There'd be no conflict in your movie because they'd all be walking around and they'd be exactly the same.
Yeah. I think he's more inclined to dress up like the Gimp, personally.
Right. Maybe. Maybe.
I think it's really important just in general for people to realize that they have the potential for great malevolence, that they have the potential to reach, great depths of depravity in the right conditions.
Right. I think anybody could in the right conditions.
Yeah. I mean, like, you could have been a Nazi, maybe, under the right conditions, right circumstances. It's like if you let yourself, if your morality sank that
it's
far,
like people say, well, if I'd have lived back then, I'd have done this. Well, it's not, you don't know what you would have done. You don't know what you would have done if you lived in Germany at that time. You don't know what you would have done in this country if you'd lived here in 1880. We just don't know because we're not in that. We're in a place where we're comforted enough where we can sit around and go, this is what I do. And,
I think if you don't know that you're capable of those things, then how can you guard against doing them? Right. How can you make the conscious choice to do good? Like I'm interested in that. Well, getting kind of philosophical maybe, but
so can I mention something real quick? Yeah. Since you mentioned the Gimp, I have something really funny to tell you, okay? So I cannot confirm this is true because I was told this, but I hope it's true. I'm going to say it on podcast. So, however many people listen, they'll, but Dwayne Whitaker, who plays there's 2 guys in that scene. There's Peter Green and Dwayne Whitaker that are the guys working in the pawn shop. Right. Dwayne Whitaker is the guy with the beard. Right. Okay, so what's funny, when we made our movie, we made a low-budget movie in Parsons called Zombiegeddon. Yes. It's not a very good movie, really, but you know what? It was a lot of fun, and I don't want to, I didn't write that. I did write a couple scenes in it, but I do not take credit for writing that. The story's kind of a mess, but it was a fun movie. Right. Anyway, we had Tom Savini in that, and Tom Savini had done something that kind of pissed me off. I got drunk when I did the interview for the extras in that. So I kind of badmouthed Tom Savini and made like some shitty remark about him. So I find out a couple years later that Dwayne Whitaker is at a convention, the guy from Pulp Fiction, and who plays Zed. I think he's Zed. One of them anyway. Maynard, maybe.
Yeah.
He's the guy with the beard, the heavyset guy. In the
Zed was blonde.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Either because Ed's dead, baby.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, and he had a crowd of people, and they were standing around talking, and they were talking about Tom Savini, and for whatever reason, he quotes me verbatim, and he's like, "Oh, that guy Andy Rausch," which, you know what? When you're nobody and you live in Parsons, that's pretty fucking cool,
Right?
Yeah.
You know, like that's pretty fucking cool. So, I mean, it's not maybe as cool as like if Sam Jackson or what's it, John Travolta says it. Like maybe it's a little cooler, but still pretty fucking cool.
No, it's
Man,
still
I
pretty fucking
just
cool.
one time I would love. He doesn't even have to say my name. It's just Sam Jackson going,
Right.
that motherfucker.
Motherfucker.
Yes. Then he would be the one to narrate my life.
That's right. Because I'd have to have a lot of motherfuckers in my story. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's a thing that people do bitch about in my writing is that there are a lot of curse words. My stories are not for everybody.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why there's a different, why we look for different things in a film than we do in a movie or in a book. Because
Yeah.
in a film, you can have Goodfellas that says fuck 500 times.
Oh, yeah.
Or Scarface, which says fuck 500 times. But if you have a book that says fuck every other page, people get irate.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Those are the books I write.
Well, I mean, it's just like the difference between nudity and violence.
It's true. You know, it's true.
Why is violence
Sure.
so much more acceptable?
I think some people view books as like a higher level thing for whatever reason. Like I've got
They
some
do.
acquaintances that say like, oh, if it's not like classic literature, then I'm
Right.
not going to bother with it. It's like,
And I tend to gravitate more towards pulp, so I'm okay
Sure.
with that.
Yeah.
You know, or Elmore Leonard is sort of my writing god, you know, who wrote, Get Shorty.
Rum Punch.
That's it. That's right. Rum Punch, which became Jackie Brown. You know, Elmore Leonard is sort of my god, you know,
Yeah.
as far as.
Justified.
That's right. Justified. That's right. I'm working on a book about Elmore Leonard that'll be turned in this year. So. And here comes the awkward silence.
oh
Yeah.
no, I want because we mentioned Zombiegeddon, and you said you didn't write that, but you did write a screenplay, did you not?
I did write a screenplay. I've written a couple. Here's the thing. I've optioned 2 books. Neither one have gotten made, at least yet. Elvis Presley, CIA assassin, did sell, but then it never. And I had to write a script for that. It never got made, which is probably a good thing because legally, I'm curious how that would have gone. Elvis
Right.
murdering
Oh.
people, but then on the and like there's a part where like there's some tacky shit in it, like he assassinates John Lennon in one part of it and stuff. I mean, there's some tacky shit in it, but then I'm surprised the book even made it out there, frankly. And then I had one called Bloody Sheets a couple years ago about a father that's taking on the Klan because his son was murdered. And what's funny is I shouldn't go into too much detail because it's still out there.
Sure.
But there were some entities that were involved with it that made the comment that they wanted more comedy. Now, if you can't gather from the description I just gave you, there's no comedy in it.
yeah.
But anyway, so that hasn't been made yet, at least. But it is sitting with a pretty good sized production company
Yeah.
that's made some things that you guys know. But the one that I did have produced was Dahmer versus Gacy, which it's a bad movie, but I like it. I'll defend it. But the thing is, it was made to be a $500 movie, or it was written to be originally. Because I had a buddy, the same guy that made Zombiegeddon, that said, and it's funny because we're credited as co-writers. I wrote the script, but he came up with the title. So, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, but again, if you don't come up with that title, there's no story.
Right.
But he said, what if we made a movie called Dahmer versus Gacy? And I thought it was brilliant because it's something you can make with no budget where you already have built-in name recognition.
Right.
It's like
Yes.
Freddy versus Jason in a way. Now, people were really outraged because, you know, they thought we were glorifying or making jokes about serial killers, and we really were.
Yeah.
But and people wanted it to be a horror movie, and it's kind of a comedy, and it really makes people mad that it's a comedy. It gets horrible. That's one thing I wrote that I will admit gets really horrible, probably deserved reviews, and that's okay. You know, we didn't think we were making, you know, anything. But what was funny was I got paid more for the script than we were originally planning for the whole movie to be made for.
Oh,
So
wow.
it ended up selling. It was still a low budget movie. It got made for $50,000. Had some interesting people in it. It had Steven Adler's in it. I did not write his scene because, again, I'm a little embarrassed of his scene. But I did not write that scene. Jerry Marin, that little dwarf guy that was in like Wizard of Oz and a bunch of stuff. Felissa Rose from Sleepover Camps in it. God, I can't remember half the people in it. There's a lot of people in it. It was a fun movie, you know. But what I do remember, 2 stories about that real quick. I go to the video store at Family Video there in Parsons the day it's supposed to come out. They had like 10 copies, which is weird as hell.
Right.
And nobody knows that this guy from Parsons wrote it. And it doesn't matter, but I go in because I hadn't seen it yet. I just want to see what the hell it looks like. So I go in as soon as they open and I beeline over to get it. And the lady that was working says, so all these really big movies came out this week. Why did you beeline directly to that? And I thought that was really funny. And she was like really excited when I told her about it. And I was goofily excited. I'm not going to lie.
Right.
She had like zombie shoes she wanted to show me. And so she wanted me to take a picture with her. And it's funny, years later, she sends me a message. I don't even know where she lives. And she's like, do you remember me? I took this picture with the zombie shoes. So that was the first story. And the other one was, I have a friend, and you probably know him too, Armando Johnson. He was a basketball coach at LCC at one time, I think, girls basketball coach. What's funny, he didn't know that I'd written that movie, and we were Facebook friends. And he posts, I was at the video store and they have a movie called Dahmer versus Gacy. And I think it is so appalling that they would make light of these things and who would write this? And I was like, I wrote it and he thought it was a joke, but it was totally me. And so I don't know. It was just cool to have a movie that was out there at a lot of video stores. I mean, I didn't make much out of it at all, but it was just cool, you know.
Well, hell yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But I'm a little embarrassed of it now in some ways, but I'm also proud of it. I don't know. It's one of those things. Yeah. It's like some of your kids. Sometimes you're...
Yeah. You know,
it's probably how my parents feel about me. Sometimes we're proud. Sometimes we're embarrassed.
You know, I've started listening to Last Podcast on the Left.
Oh, yeah?
Have you ever listened?
I haven't heard that. Is it a film podcast?
No, not really.
I like the reference, though.
Yeah, it's...
Marcy listens to that.
Yeah. Oh man, it's just three guys, and they talk conspiracies, they talk alien abductions, serial killers. Right now, I'm on Nazis in the occult.
That stuff's interesting.
Yes, but here's the thing: they're three comedians.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
You know.
And it goes back. It started where I picked up on it was in 2012, and what I've told them every time I talk about it is like, it was a different time then,
right?
You know, some of the shit they say. Oh my God, this is like me without a filter,
right?
Yeah.
You mentioned the Nazis versus the Nazis in the occult. I have a novel. It got put out by a comic book company called Source Point Press, so it's had like less people have probably seen it than any of my other novels, but it's a good novel. It's I had this idea, and it's Universal Monsters basically. Although we didn't have the rights to Universal Monsters, but I mean Dracula's in public domain, Frankenstein's in public domain. We used a generic werewolf. So anyway, we had this. The United States organizes this group of monsters to fight Nazis in World War II, because the Nazis are using the occult to try to win World War II. So the United States is going to try to match that, and you end up with like. The Nazis have a golem, and there's just all kinds of crazy shit goes on in that. That one's called M Company. It was supposed to be a series. So it's like M Company in, and it was M Company in the Axis of Evil, which was, and I wrote that with a guy named David Hayes, who wrote, there's a low budget movie and a comic book called Rotten Tail. And he was the guy that wrote that. Pretty cool writer. But anyway, just throw that out there. But so I write about all kinds of fucking wild shit, you know.
That reminds me of Rob Zombie's trailer in the middle of Grindhouse.
Grindhouse, yeah.
Yeah, Werewolf Women of the SS.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, no, it was great. They had these fake trailers in between those.
So what's going on with Rob Zombie? With his movies, man, because it's like...
They're just steadily going
further downhill. Yeah. Although I have to say, I didn't love House of a Thousand Corpses like everybody else did, but Devil's Rejects I fucking loved.
Yeah,
I went and saw it multiple times, loved it, loved the gritty 70s feel to it. Mm-hmm. And then I haven't really liked any of them that much since.
I have always loved the back half of House of a Thousand Corpses.
Right, I get
that. Because the first part of it's really campy.
Yeah.
And then it just like flips a switch and it's dark.
I get where he was going with that. I think he was just trying to do like a sideshow type.
Yeah.
It just looks a little cheap to me.
First one. But
the new one, the sequel, like the third part, was really bad. Like From Hell, is that the name of it?
Yeah, Three from Hell.
Three from Hell. And I was so excited about it. And I think I watched 20 minutes of it. I had to turn it off.
I watched it all just because I want. So, Sid Haig dying.
Oh, I loved Sid Haig.
Ruined. I honestly, after watching all of it, I don't think him dying ruined it.
Right.
Because if that was the story, you could easily replace what's his name, and put Sid Haig back in there, but it wasn't a good movie. I mean, I just don't.
And I didn't really like his Halloween movies either, frankly. But I dig his heart. That I like his ideas. I mean, that he wants to do these things. I dig where his heart and his mind are, but sometimes it just doesn't work out.
I liked the. Well, let me back up. I did not like the first Halloween, the remake.
Right.
I thought him making Michael Myers come from a white trash family just horribly cliche.
Well, and he wanted to put his, white trash, folksy kind of shit that he likes to put in movies in there. He tried to integrate these two things together that don't necessarily fit together.
Well, and Michael Myers was too old. I mean, that was one of the creepiest things about the first one. I mean, he looked like he was 4 or 5 years old, and from a nice family. I thought the second one had some interesting ideas. Right. I thought it was better than the first one.
I just hated the cameos every 2 minutes too. That's very distracting. But
and he continually uses the same character.
He does.
And so then
I didn't mind for a long time when he used Sherry Moon Zombie. I'm less excited about her now that
Yeah, well, he's always going to use her.
He's always going to use her, and I mean that's fine. I'd use her too if I could, but but I don't know.
What was the Lords of Salem? I don't like witch movies.
Right, I don't either.
But I will say that was probably the most beautifully shot movie he's ever done.
No, it did.
I mean, the designs and everything were, and just like that freaking hallway, it was almost a riff on The Shining. It was just uncomfortable to look at, but it's just that old world Victorian horrible carpet and wallpaper, and I don't know. That was. I've watched that movie twice because I want to like it because it looks so good, and it doesn't.
There are some movies you want to like, and you keep watching them, and they just don't improve.
No,
and you know what's one movie that I can't bring myself to love? I get the things that some people do love about Midsommar, but I just can't quite get there. I've seen it a couple of times, and there are things I dig about it.
Yeah,
and I realize it's kind of a slow burn. Well, it's more than a slow burn. It's 2.5 hours to get to anything actually happening. But I mean, it's interesting. But I don't know. It's kind of boring too. I don't know.
I don't know which movies and cult movies. I will say there was one. Oh, what was that one? Guy that directed House of the Devil, Ty West.
Oh, Ty West. I like him.
He did another one that was basically about a cult, and it was a very Jim Jones-ish kind of cult.
What was
and that one was really uncomfortable.
Weirdly enough, I'm not sure if I ever ended up watching that. I think it was when I was sick, and it kind of slipped by.
Yeah.
I really liked Ty West at first. Even his Western, I didn't love. It was okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. But his first couple movies I liked a lot.
And then riffing on that, like Red State by Kevin Smith. That was really good.
I loved Red State.
Yeah.
It got a bad rap.
And you label something like that a horror movie, and people call Jaws a horror movie.
I was going to say, where do you draw the line? I was going to bring up Jaws, exactly.
Yeah. Jaws, Alien. I get where they're coming from, but I don't know. I've watched them since I was a kid. I don't feel like they're horror movies.
Well, see, we did.
There are horrible things in there.
Oh, there are. Well, there are scary things in a way, I mean, if it affects the way that you go and get in the ocean for the rest of your life, maybe. But I think it does. But I know what you're saying. We had this dilemma. I did a book with 4 other writers called "The 101 Scariest Movies of All Time," and it was really came down to a debate of what do you include, what do you not, and Jaws was definitely one of them or like Silence of the Lambs. There are scary moments in Silence, like when she's in the dark and he's looking at her through that, ultra. But I don't know that you would really call them horror. But then I think if you leave them out, you're going to have people. That was a no-win. We just knew that people were going to bitch about those.
I feel like those are
where you rate them. I feel like no matter where you rated things, people were going to bitch. So that was kind of why we put it out. Was just to cause a.
I tend to think of those as more like thrillers.
I do too.
Suspense. Yeah, and I miss that. I actually I appreciate that more than I do the gore.
But even Psycho, I mean, could be more of a thriller. If you, it's really weird. Like, where do you draw the line? It's interesting. You know.
The honestly, Jaws, The Shallows, which was good. Yeah. All those shark movies don't bother me with the ocean. The movie that scares me with the ocean is The Perfect Storm.
Right.
You're never going to get me out on a fishing trawler. Fuck that.
Fuck that.
Fuck that.
I don't know. I think sharks are scary as shit.
No, I do too.
Well, yeah,
the
yeah.
idea of being eaten in little people. Well, that's why zombies are scary. Even though, we know they're bullshit. That was my
and that's
stepson.
worse because that's like dull teeth.
Right.
Are you?
Yeah.
And knowing my luck, I get chewed up by a fucking meth head, and she got one tooth. And
But my kid asked me, well, what's scary about zombies? But since they've grown up, that's been around the whole time.
Right.
When we were kids, and I mean, you look younger than me. I don't know how old you guys are. But you know what? When I was a kid, there weren't that many zombie movies. There was the Romero movies. There was sometimes I'd go into VHS, and get some like the Italian stuff, and there'd be a few of those. But I mean, Return of the Living Dead I like a lot, even though it's kind of comedy. It's creepy and shit in places.
it's one of the few really gory movies that I've always loved.
But I think that's why it's scary in the same way that Jaws is scary, is that it's the idea of being eaten by something and you're still half alive while it's eating the rest of you.
Yeah, you're feeling
and being
every
digested.
Bite.
And you're just going to be digested in somebody's shit, basically.
Yeah.
Although, if zombies don't shit, see, I've never thought of this. Do zombies shit? Because I don't think they do, but then where do all those bodies go in the brains that they eat?
Well, and if blood's not flowing, how do they swallow? The muscles shouldn't even be working. You know what I mean?
There we go.
There's a lot of holes in the whole zombie thing in there.
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah.
And
Danny Boyle fixed that with 28 Days Later.
I like
No, they're not
when the
dead.
fast zombie stuff
Well,
happened,
and
that
they're-
was
they're
like a kind
not
of a game
dead.
changer.
And I'm going to say it. I think that Walking Dead's kind of ruined zombies. Like, it was cool for a couple seasons, but having zombies around just nonstop all the time, and then you had all these rip-offs, and it was just zombies everywhere to the point where
I've committed. I have to finish it.
you have to finish now.
Zombies are just, it's not even about zombies, really. It's about how
About the
people,
relationships
the
and how they
relationships. It's
survive
like zombies are kind of the backdrop,
But they've just become so normalized,
Yes.
that we just don't care anymore.
And see, I bailed after they.
Zombies. Yeah, stab him in the head.
Well, I wish I'd have
Right.
waited because I
we
hated
getting water
Carl,
next?
and I kept hoping, please let Carl die. and then I missed it, and look, sorry, spoiler guys.
I
if you
hated
haven't
Carl,
gotten
and
that.
then I thought that Carl started to develop into a really cool character.
Oh, really? See, I didn't get that far.
Yeah, I thought so. I quit watching it. I haven't seen probably the last
I quit.
few seasons.
I quit.
I haven't either.
I quit after they introduced Negan.
But Negan was fun. I think it's telling of the show when you root more for Negan than the fucking characters that we're supposed to root for. 'Cause I'm rooting for them to die in a way.
The way. So I hit that season, the cliffhanger, right? And all you hear is the bat swinging, and you hear the mush, And then I watched that first episode, and he killed both of them,
Right.
and I'm like, okay, one, they were both kind of foreshadowed in the season before, and
Right.
what pissed me off is, man, what would have been awesome is that everybody expected it to be Glenn. Of course
Yes.
it was, but they had
Yeah.
Abraham too. They should have.
I think everyone was expecting Glenn and hoping it would be Abraham.
Right.
At least I was.
Well, I mean, because what's her name took the arrow through the head, which was Abraham in the comics. But they should have shown Abraham getting smashed at the end of that season. And everybody like, oh, whoa, it was Abraham.
Yeah.
And then they immediately come back at the first of the next season, and he walks over and kills Glenn. That would have been fucking huge.
Yeah.
See,
I
to
agree.
me-
Doing them two back to back, it just felt like.
I watched a little bit more after, but where they lost me really lost me mentally, was when the whole thing where Glenn should have died the first time. Okay, and it's not that I didn't like Glenn, but I mean, it was such a bullshit cop-out that he's
Under the
under
dumpster.
a dumpster for like a long time. Like, was it a week? And he doesn't eat or drink anything. He's under this dumpster, and to the point where the zombies just get bored and leave.
Yeah, that was some
seemed
bullshit.
I'm sorry, but look,
That was the beginning of the end for me, too.
I
honestly.
probably grew up on the same comic books you guys did, but I feel like, and I feel the same way in the comic book movies. In anything, if you're going to get me invested in a character and you kill them, and then they come back later, fuck you, I'm out. You know what I mean? Unless it's Jason or something that, whatever,
you
bring him
expect
back.
it, yeah.
But if it's like, okay, and again, there were a lot of people that didn't know the storyline of the Marvel movie. What was that? Where they all die or they turn into dust or whatever. And everybody's crying and shit. And it's like, I think I'm going to bring them all back. I mean,
Well, yeah, they just killed all the new characters. That was one thing that kind of I was like, man, at least take out a couple of the originals.
Although Spider-Man, they took out Spider-Man. I mean, but we knew he was going to come back. They're not getting rid of Spider-Man.
He's fucking Spider-Man.
He's fucking Spider-Man. That was a sad scene, though. I don't give a fuck where he's.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I was not expecting. Black Widow to go in Endgame.
Right.
That was huge for me.
But now she's got her own movie coming out. It's a prequel, I'm sure.
It's a prequel.
But
It is, yeah.
But you know what? Scarlett Johansson. I'm down for.
And she owned that role, man. I mean, she
is Black Widow to me now.
Yeah.
It's like, I like me some ScarJo.
Right. I have to admit, I was very sad about Chadwick Boseman because he was so young and so, and he was a guy that was a hero to so many people and represented something different for a lot of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he came out and nobody basically knew he was sick, and I mean, I think it was stunning. We think, I think of 43 as young, but it's not like, somebody that's 25 or, because yesterday was the anniversary, or yesterday was Amy Winehouse's birthday, and I think, she was really young when she died.
27?
But I'm not sure what age she was because she would have been 37 yesterday.
I think
yesterday was her 37th
I think it was
birthday.
the 27 curse. Janis
it was,
Joplin
wasn't it? Because there's a whole bunch of them.
Jimi Hendrix, Mama Cass.
I don't know. So I'm trying not to be one of those. One of them that just the five of us will know, but I don't know. I keep taking it back. It's all my mind does, man. That's why how I write all these books about people getting killed is because I'm one of those people. That's all I think about.
Yeah. Well, I'm not only do you have to have something that motivates you, like a carrot that you're reaching for, but that stick behind you, that fear of death.
It's both in a way.
I mean, running to something, you'll run pretty fast, but if you're running from something, you're going to run a little harder too. It's like both those things together. The psychology of it, I find that stuff pretty interesting.
So we were talking about horror. Here's the thing. I did write a book with Herschel Gordon Lewis, who was considered the godfather of gore. He was the originator of the gore movie in the United States. And there were a couple of Italian movies that preceded him, I think. But because there was a time when even, a lot of Westerns, you'd see people get shot or something, or horror movies where there was really no blood.
None,
and he was the first one to bring out guts, and he did, the original, 2000 Maniacs and
I love that movie. Love that movie.
He was a cool guy, and it was cool to do that book. I mean, they weren't really movies, I have to admit, that I loved. But it was a cool opportunity, man. I like 2000 Maniacs. That's the one that I really do like, But that was pretty cool, and then he passed on. Well, the funny thing is the two people I've worked on memoirs with, I'm working on a third one now. But the two people I worked on previously, I worked on a book with Gary Graver, who was, he's a neat guy. I'm working on a biography of him now. He passed away. He was Orson Welles' cinematographer in the last 20 years of his life, 15 years of his life. He was also a director, and he directed 200 porno films under a pseudonym. This guy had the weirdest, wildest career. He did movies with Steven Spielberg. You had all these great people, John Cassavetes, Steven Spielberg, Orson Welles. And then on the other end, he directed a movie that was written by Ed Wood, who I did a book on Ed Wood also. He did all of the Al Adamson movies, which, all of these really good and then really bad, and then in the middle, porn. It's insane. So I'm working on a biography of him now. But I was going to say the two people I've worked on memoirs died. So now I'm working on a memoir with this actress, Erica Gavin, who was in some Russ Meyer kind of TNA movies, back in the late 60s, early 70s. And so hopefully we can break the curse with her. She won't. I'm not causing her to die off.
You're going to have to sign a waiver or something.
We've been working on that book for 5 years, and it's still going.
Yeah.
But we're going to get there one of these days. One of us is going to die, or it's going to, I don't know, something's going to happen. But eventually, we're going to get there.
That's awesome.
I read, I think, that you are going to be working on some graphic novels. Is that
has
true?
Been slow coming. There's one. I've been working with that guy, David Hayes, I talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. He works with a company called Source Point Press. They do some neat stuff. I co-wrote one with him that still has not come out yet called Union Corpse. It's supposed to be like Union Corps, but it's corpse. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's basically zombies in the Civil War. That one we wrote 2 years ago.
Actually,
we wrote that 2 years ago, and it's still not come out. And then there's another one we're supposed to be working on. It's like a 6-part one. I don't really know. We came up with the concept. He's off writing it now, I think. But it was about serial killers trying to get out of hell. and another hell story there. And it was kind of like Dahmer versus Gacy. It was like the two ideas put together, I guess, the in hell and the Dahmer versus Gacy thing. So that's it for the moment, as far as that. I don't know. Yeah. I kind of thought that was going to be a bigger, quicker thing, and it just hasn't really happened that way. But,
Yeah.
So there's one more thing. I got a novelization coming out next month. This is a thing I've never done. The old movie Carnival of Souls, which was shot, a lot of it in Lawrence, came out in 1961, I believe, an old horror movie in black and white. I got a contract to write a novel based on that. And I'd seen the movie, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but it was the hardest fucking thing ever to write a novel on, because the movie is basically dependent on, there's no character motivations. It all comes down to this big hook at the end. And if anybody's seen it, they'll know what I'm talking about. But because of that, we can't have any character motivations. So, and it's dependent, it's creepiness. It is creepy, but it's dependent on being in black and white with really creepy music and scary face. Like there's this scary dead man's face we keep seeing. Well, those things don't translate at all to writing.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out how to write this story without changing it dramatically, but still making it was a hell of a task. It's coming out next month for Halloween. So we'll see how that goes. But
yeah, man,
that was a thing. I don't know if I'm ever going to do one of those again. But hey, it was a thing I can mark off the list. I did it.
Watch the movie before you say okay.
Right. Well, I had seen it, but I just didn't think about it. It's like, well, that's a pretty cool movie, without thinking of what exactly that was going to entail.
That's awesome to push yourself and challenge yourself that way, though.
It was.
And I'm sure it's hard. I'm sure it's hard and not all fun and games, but.
Yeah, it's because sometimes it is easy to slide into the things. This is what I do best. This is what I know I can do. And just wanting to, because this one I'm working on now that takes place in hell, I've been thinking about it for a couple of years and it just seemed hard. And so I kind of put off doing it, but finally the pieces just slid into place. Hopefully it turns out as good as I think it's going. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
I love the concept of it.
Yeah, and it's going to be a series.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I thought about and forgot to ask you as we've been talking is, are any of your writings right now, are they connected in any way?
Well, a few of them are connected. My first novel is called The Suicide Game. But what was funny was it was sort of like a Pulp Fiction or Crash or something like that, or a Robert Altman movie where you had different characters with different lives and then they all intersect. And so you had these crazy characters like, there's somebody that's a gay porn or a gay phone sex operator. There's a guy that's a priest. There's a guy that's a black hitman. That was like 10 years ago. I'm trying to think of who all the characters. That's horrible, isn't it? I can't even remember. My memory's bad. Part of it's all the anesthesia over and over from all the surgeries. But anyway,
it's probably writing over 40 books. That's a lot of characters to keep track of. My God.
Well, only about 10 of them are fiction, and the rest are all nonfiction. So that's a little. But anyway, so one of the characters ends up in Layla's score. And then Layla's, but it's not really I don't know, it's kind of a prequel, I guess. And then Layla's score is eventually going to be a series of 3, just like this other one I'm working on. The thing is, it's hard to jump right from one thing back into the exact same characters for me, because sometimes I want to go do other things.
Right.
So
do you move away from a story when it gets cold and pick up on something else, or?
It's hard for me to go back to a thing when it gets cold. Like I've got a book. I'm trying to get another writer that I really like to help me finish it, for him to come on, kind of breathe some life into it. I wrote half a novel at the beginning of last year. It was a modern update of Macbeth. And it was really fun, but for whatever reason, I got pulled away. It was actually until one of us' dad pulled me away. I had this idea and I thought, I have to do this. And it's been so hard to go back to it. So I've got half a novel that I feel like is really, really good, but it's just sitting there. And I can't seem to get my interest back into it.
Yeah.
But I do, when I work on 7 or 8 projects, like a lot of these are nonfiction. So I slide back and forth. So if there's a day I don't feel like working on this, I work on that. But as a result, a lot of these projects take fucking forever. So I've been working on a book about Joe Lansdale for years. He's getting impatient, I know, and I don't blame him. I've got a book on Elmore Leonard that I'm working on. I've got that biography of Gary Graver. I've got a book that I've done very little work on about all the I Am Legend incarnations. God, I don't know. I even lose track. There's a lot, but so I don't know. I'm the only one talking. I'm sorry.
No, man, I love it.
Everybody's like starting to space out.
He's got a short in his headphones. He's trying to work it out.
I find it really inspiring to me. Like I tend to get really focused and I want to do one thing and finish it, and I get like really single track minded about stuff.
Right.
And so like you're doing so much and at such a high level, and I think that's amazing. It's really inspiring.
I wish I didn't do it that way though, because it drives me insane.
Yeah, it makes me feel like we got to up our game. Like,
dude, I mean, he makes all the things I do make me feel lazy.
No,
but it's not by choice. It's just
Matt's kind of has the same mindset as you. I think. I mean,
even though the bipolar is medicated, that is a thing. I think it, especially when I do go through a manic period, I don't get them very often because of the medication. But when I do, it manifests itself in a different way. It manifests itself in me taking on more projects, which is great initially, but then later on you're like, oh fuck, I've got a bunch more projects now that I've signed on to do, and
I have I'm dealing with it well now, but I've had anxiety disorders and I've had manic periods like that, so I can relate to that. I get what you're saying.
I never had just straight up anxiety until I got older, and I don't know why. Like I take fucking Valium all the time. I don't know. I might go a day or two with no Valium, and then I have to take like 3 of those motherfuckers because I just feel like I'm going to jump out of my skin.
Right.
I gotta say, and this might be a generalized statement, but like I think as we age, we become more self-aware.
I think that's true.
And
some of us
definitely,
because like I'm thinking about when I was younger. I'm like, I don't know. Recently, I flew overseas to Germany.
Oh, and that's awesome. I didn't know.
I had crazy anxiety over that. I just was thinking all the worst things.
How was that Nazi reunion?
No.
And very good time, yeah.
We have ways of making you talk.
I kid.
Beautiful.
This is how we say goodbye in Germany.
That's a whole other story for
I hear nothing. I see nothing.
Anyway, it was just a tourist thing. So, but staying on track,
right?
Like I was thinking all the worst. What if I die in a fucking fiery plane crash? Like, all my kids and my wife
like in the ocean.
Left. Yes, and like, or what if I'm even worse? Like, I don't die and I'm just left in the middle of the ocean, floating on some sort of fucking raft or something.
Right. So then a shark could come and get you, and
shark bait.
You can drown and get eaten alive at the same time.
Think about Jaws.
And that's a long flight.
Yeah,
I stopped. I spent a couple of hours in a what do you call it? In a hangar in Germany because I went to Egypt in the military, and we stopped off in Germany on the way, and we couldn't leave the fucking hangar. So I get to say I went to Germany, but I didn't see shit but the inside of a hangar. Then when we came back, we stopped in like Sicily. And I didn't get to see any of that either. It's a fucking hangar. So it's like, well, I was in Germany once. You can, you can make it sound good, but
did they at least bring you some good beer or something?
You can bring us shit.
Fuck.
If I'm on a plane over an hour and a half, then I start to get really fucking anxious. I don't like flying. I do it, but I don't like it. And I haven't ever had to go any longer than 2 hours. So if I went overseas, which I'm fully willing to do,
right,
I'm going to be medicated.
I was drunk the whole fucking flight on the way there and back, and it was absolutely fucking miserable.
I remember I flew from Kansas City to Baltimore when I graduated. This friend of mine, his dad lived out there and bought him a car, so we flew out there to get the car and drive back. And just graduated, 18. So like, hey, can we get you anything? Yeah, I'll have a Bud Light. They served me on the plane. I ended up having 2, and I was happy when I landed.
The shitty, I've been on a lot of planes, but the shittiest experience I ever had, I was never scared until this one, and now I always think about it whenever I get on a plane. But I don't know if you ever saw me, Darryel, but when I had that LVAD, I had this machine called an LVAD, and what it was when I was waiting for the transplant. And they didn't have this device up until like, say, 13 years ago. So at any other point in my life, or any other time in history, I'd be dead. Mm-hmm. So it kept me alive to get to the transplant. So it's a machine that hangs in a bag on the outside of my body. It has batteries in it, and it has a little machine, and then there's a cord that goes out that went into my belly, goes up and hooks to a machine in my heart. Mm-hmm. And it kept the left side of my heart beating. Okay, so this is way shittier even than it sounds, because like you have to always have backup batteries, because if the batteries die, pretty much you die. Mm-hmm. And you have to plug into a wall at nighttime, like a fucking, I don't know. You're always tethered to this thing. Like when I went to the city, I'd be afraid of like somebody was going to try to kind of purse snatch me. Because if they do, it's going to pull on your heart. It's going to hurt you really bad. It's going to fucking kill you. So I was on this plane.
There's a story there.
And you have to go through all this shit at customs to get on the plane, right? Because they don't know what this thing is. And they're like, let us take the bag and check it. And I'm like, I can't because it's connected to my body. So obviously in the bigger cities, they knew what it was. They'd seen it. But Joplin, Missouri airport, where there's like 5 guys working there, they didn't know. And there's a funny thing there. There's a guy, when I was waiting to get on the airplane, there's a guy that's like, what is that? And I'm telling him, and he's like, oh, you're going to fucking die soon.
Well, we got a
and I was like,
bomb. There's a bomb.
But there's just a guy in the lobby, and he's like, oh man, that means you're going to be dead soon. Bummer. And I'm like, fuck. Wow. Yeah. And I'm like, fuck this guy. So we get on the plane. Guess who sits right next to me? This guy. So anyway, when I ended up, where was I at? I was like fucking Seattle or somewhere, flying into, I don't remember where the hell. I was in some Dallas maybe, flying into Chicago, and I had to bounce all over. And they put me on this plane, but they had a special section for me because I had the medical thing. There was, in this plane, there was this section in the middle. I guess up front was the rich people section. In the back was the me section generally. But in the middle, they had this area where the stewardesses would sit or whatever, fuck around. Their little kitchen area was there. So they had me sit there by the window. Well, this is great. But we get into this turbulence and it's bouncing all around and shit. So I said, can I? And the nurses, or not the nurses, the stewardesses all sit down and they're strapping in next to me. One of them's crying. I fucking shit you not. This plane's flopping around. And they said, this other stewardess tells me, well, she's fairly new. She doesn't know any better. And so I'm looking over and I'm looking out the window and there's lightning and shit. It's freaking me out. And it almost makes you think of, that Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Like
there's something.
John Lithgow or the William Shatner one, there's something on the plane. So I said, well, can I close this window? And the lady says, well, no, we have to keep that open so we can see if lightning hits the fucking propeller or whatever. And the engine. And I was just sitting there and I just knew I was going to die. And I don't remember what it was, but there was a little TV right in front of me where we were sitting, and it had like some really shitty 80s sitcom on it. I don't remember what it was. And I'm sorry if this offends people, but I think it might've been Friends. I don't know. It was just something I didn't want to see as I died. And I thought, this is going to be the last fucking thing I see as I die.
I need a rerun of Cheers, man. I'm going out.
I don't even remember what it was. I just remember thinking it was fucking corny. Maybe it wasn't even 80s. I was just scared. I was scared to death, but I survived. So.
Oh yeah. Shoot. One of my first plane rides, we were coming back from Florida and we landed in Atlanta to meet our connecting flight. Well, we landed in Atlanta in a thunderstorm. Oh. And this was back when, you had the 737s, they had the actual middle row, right, that they don't have anymore. We're in sardine cans now. Right. So anyway, we hit the tarmac and literally the plane starts to fishtail side to side. That shit I've never forgotten. I think that's probably where most of my anxiety comes from.
That would do it.
That and, now, you feel like you're stuffed in a tall boy.
The only time I've had a bad experience in a plane is as a kid. One time I was flying from Colorado to Los Angeles, and we were coming down to land, and like the altitude, like my ears wouldn't pop, and it just like the pressure just built and built and built, and I was just like, it was like horrible, and it's like, I don't know, finally got over it, but
blow it out.
Yeah, it was weird.
The first plane I ever flew on, Roy Williams, who used to be the KU basketball coach, and then and he coached several places, but he was on the plane, and I was going to basic training, and so I'm 18, or actually, I'm 18, and I'm on this plane, and I had a KU shirt on, and so Roy Williams sees me, and he's just like, "Fuck!" I could tell he was just like, "Fuck," and he puts his head down. But I'm 18. I'm like, I'm gonna bother the fuck out of Roy Williams. So what's funny? He sits down, and like he was up, I think. Where the fuck were we? Was I sitting up ahead of him first? I can't remember. But I go back and I sit next to him. Now, I know he had an empty seat. Yeah. I guarantee you he had an empty seat, but he didn't bitch about it. If it was me, I'd have bitched about it. So I just sat there and asked him KU questions for like the whole flight. It's a little embarrassing, but... Yeah. And Jan Stenerud, who was the kicker for the Chiefs was on that same flight. I have no idea. I don't think they were related, going to the same place, but they were both on there. But Jan Stenerud goes by and he's got his championship ring on. And I didn't even know who he was at the time. You know, I mean, I knew who he was, but I didn't recognize him. I mean, it was a long fucking time ago. And somebody says, "Is that?" And his wife turns around, or his girlfriend, or whoever, and she goes, "Yes, it is." And they just walk by. She was going to speak for him in third person, for him.
Right.
Well, Jan Stenerud's mythos. Oh, God.
So on the way over, I was trying to think of what we should talk about, and you guys are killing it. And I'm just like, yeah. So when I met Andy,
how did you meet Andy? Tell us the story.
Well, let's see here. I don't know if you want to talk about this.
Clearly from your acting chops.
I'll talk about anything. I don't.
Well, all right. So Andy was kind of legendary actually because he was a musician in town and he made hip hop and rap. And
I did not know this.
And
That's not on Wikipedia.
There was something of a
Is it not?
There was something of a rivalry between him and another local hip hop artist. And so that was kind
this little small town.
That was the thing. That was
hip
the thing.
hop war.
Technique.
Right.
Which later became St. Andrew.
Right.
So
It's PK 8 Mile.
Right. It kind of was.
Oh yeah.
It'd be what, 2 mile?
But I want to go back
That's the whole
to
town.
And I was thinking of segueing into this earlier because you were talking about Reservoir Dogs being made on a small budget,
right?
Which made me think of Clerks, which is made on a very small budget, which makes me think of you because you are the
Worked
Randall
at the video store.
You are the Randall of Parsons, Kansas. But who the fuck is your Dante?
Right. I don't know.
You don't have a Dante?
I don't know.
There had to be a Dante.
You know what? The guy that plays Dante was almost in Zombiegeddon, by the way.
Really?
Because it wasn't a SAG movie, he ended up having to turn it down. But
he's so
I don't
good.
know.
He wasn't even supposed to be there that day.
No.
But you know what's funny? When I was working at this ties in. When I was working at the video store with your wife Marcy, there was a guy there named Jared. You remember Jared, the guy with the long
Jared
hair?
Neff, yeah.
Oh, well, we shouldn't say his name where this story's going, but okay, Jared, whoever.
We know Jared Neff.
Well, anyway,
we can block it out.
What's
if it's
funny
really bad.
was by this point, like this, the other rapper Kool-Aid is his name. He and I were, we were starting to get kind of cool, and I mean, I begrudgingly liked his music, and now we're cool. But
yeah,
what was funny was, so this Jared guy, I'd never met him before. I didn't know anything about him. I start working at the video store, and Jared's there. This other guy that works there, and he's like, "Have you heard Kool-Aid's album, his new one?" And I was like, "I have." And he's like, "What'd you think of it?" And I said, "Well, I thought the rhymes were really good, the flows were good, it sounded good. The only thing that sounded like shit to me was the engineering." And Jared says, "I engineered it." And to this day, I feel fucking horrible about that.
I'm sure he would agree now.
Probably.
And here's the thing: that little comment right there probably set him on the path to be as good at recording as he is now.
Is he very good?
He's
good,
done some,
good.
He's done some.
Well,
really
because
good
I got to
things.
tell you, I felt awful about that. It would be like if I,
he did the Hate Maid record.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
because because but I got to say, and that was a cool record, by the way. But I've got to say, as somebody that creates things, if I'm just having a conversation with somebody and they don't know that I wrote a book and they say, "Oh, that book fucking sucks," I'm going to feel like shit, and I feel bad. I would never do that to somebody.
Yeah, well, it's not. It wasn't malicious. I mean, it's not.
It wasn't meant to be, but sometimes that's worse.
Yeah,
because it's just
because that's pure honesty. Yeah.
But then again, like it's one of those life moments.
But then I also have to admit, I don't really know that much about engineering. I don't know what the hell. You know what? I'm probably talking out my ass. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
and it could have been a 10th generation copy that I was fucking hearing.
Yeah. I mean, it's all subjective anyway.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
That's funny though.
That's horrible.
I started to take those classes sometime a few years after Jared had graduated.
Oh yeah.
And I attempted to make some beats for a few of the local guys.
Oh yeah.
And I tried one time and they're like, "Nah." Sorry, I suck.
I will. You've heard me brag this before, though. I will say this. So, Chuck D from Public Enemy had one of my songs on his radio show. It's one of his top 10 unsigned artists of 1998. Now,
that is awesome.
That would be like Al Bundy, like 100 years later, talking about, "I was a football, I did this 3 touchdowns in the whatever game," and But that was and what did I do with that that moment of I quit. And it's a funny story. And you asked about 8 Mile. Here's the 8 Mile story. So I was on an anthology, or not an anthology, on a compilation. Mm-hmm. And Tech Nine was on this compilation. There was another guy that had made it pretty big at that time out of Kansas City named Vel Bacardi. So anyway, they're both on this CD. And we were supposed to go to this record release party. So we go up there. I had no idea they were going to ask me to perform. No idea. So you'll know where this story's going. Mm. So we go in this place, and it's on Troost, and it's this little bar. There's probably 500 people in there. And I'm just going to say that this was intimidating because I was like the only white guy in the whole building. And I don't mean that in any malicious way, but if you were the only black guy, if you were Charlie Pride and you go into a place and it's the first time you've ever performed publicly, and there's 500 white people that are rednecks, or you're going to be scared. Yeah. And so I was nervous, and I had no idea. And here's the shitty order of how they did it. So the guy comes over and tells me that put it together. He says, you're going to go on and you're going to do this song. And I said, I'm not ready. I don't want to do it. I don't have the backup. Oh, we'll just play the song under you and you rap over it, which is a shitty way to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And he goes, you're going to go on after Tech Nine.
Oh, fuck.
This is in Kansas City, where Tech Nine is the biggest thing they've ever had.
Right.
And and there's a funny story there too, because I run into Tech Nine in the bathroom, and we're having a conversation in the bathroom, and he gets jumped in the bathroom, and I'm like, I like Tech Nine, but I'm not getting my ass whipped for Tech Nine, and I turn to walk right the fuck out. So anyway, he comes out, he does his set, and it's great, and everybody's going ape shit. I get up there and lock up. Can't remember a fucking word of my song.
God,
this was before the 8 Mile movie. So when the 8 Mile movie come out and, he locks up, I totally related.
Flashback, man.
That is the moment that I quit. Period. That was it. I said, I'm not doing it ever again. 20 years later, we made a couple songs and whatever I had, whatever that was, it was gone. But that's an interesting story.
That is a crazy fucking story.
It was the scariest moment of my life. The guy that's had a heart transplant is telling you that the scariest moment he ever had was being on stage, looking at 500 people, looking back, and not knowing a word of his own fucking song.
Yeah. No, we've never experienced that.
That's terrifying.
Never been in front of 500 people.
Yeah. That's the key differentiator right there. Yeah. I just mumble. I do. Nowadays you totally could have just fucking mumbled through.
Oh, you could.
Yeah, you can mumble.
You could totally.
They'd be like,
you could, but man, I don't know. That was crazy. So it always reminded me of that. And and I was in a national magazine. There was a rap magazine called Rap Sheet. I was in that, and I was in Kansas City Star. There was a lot going on. I mean, but what was funny was people at home didn't like the shit because most of the people at home didn't listen to East Coast rap. They listened to down south, or they listened to West Coast. So I would hear this shit, but yet, I had a record deal that fell through. I had a record deal where the company went out of business. I had all of these things that were happening, but nothing at home. Right. And which was aggravating, but I kept going. So then it always reminds me of that line in Field of Dreams where Burt Lancaster said, that he came so close to his dream that he felt it brush across his face. That's what it felt like. But you know what? I'm 100 times better a writer than I was a rapper. And I feel like I was okay, but this was what I was meant to do. And I may not have had my kids. I've got 5 kids, 2 step kids. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that, it's God or whatever, but
right.
I think, kind of like Donnie Darko.
Right.
You got that little fucking worm from the abyss,
right?
Kind of guiding you
on your path.
It's just intuition, man. I
went to a midnight screening of Donnie Darko in Tulsa at the Circle Cinema, and it was one of those midnight shows, and somebody had the full Frank outfit and was sitting and I don't remember why, but he was sitting like behind us, and my wife at the time like nudges me like. I turned around and looked at him, and it creeped me the fuck out in the dark. Because the eyes don't blink, it's just looking. And now I think,
and if you haven't seen it,
how hot I'd seen it, but how hot must it have been to be in that mask the whole movie? But that dude did it. He was like, "Fuck it, I'm a trooper. I'm gonna do it."
I love that movie. That movie's a trip.
That movie is a trip.
Why are you wearing the stupid man suit?
Right. And it made Tears for Fears cool for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It had a great soundtrack.
It did have a cool soundtrack. And it worked very well with that movie.
Very young Seth Rogen as a bully.
Oh, I forgot about that. I haven't seen that movie in years. I watched it a lot back then, but
I'm trying to figure it all out, you know.
And then Richard Kelly kind of went downhill too, because I saw that Southland Tales that he did after that, and that was kind of not that good.
I've never been able to get into that.
Has he ever done anything? What has he done since?
He did A Scanner Darkly. Which
that's another weird one.
Yeah.
Well, it's a Philip K. Dick thing. Anything Philip K. Dick does is.
Yeah, but I mean, there's been lots of movies that have been adapted from his works that have, I don't know, they've probably just, made him a little more mainstream, and he kind of went straight off the text. But Scanner Darkly, I was excited about it because, it had this animated look. Robert Downey Jr. is in it. This is going to be fucking great. And I'm like, it was just.
Actually, that wasn't Richard Kelly though, was it? Wasn't that the guy from what's his name from Austin that did? Because he did Before Sunrise, Before Sunset.
No, I thought it was Richard Kelly.
But it seems like his name Richard Linklater.
Linklater, that's right.
I interviewed him, and what was interesting when I did
he's the one that did Dazed and Confused.
He did Dazed and Confused. Okay. So I had interviewed him for a book.
Just another dick, man.
Well, it was funny. I did a book one time with 50 film directors in it, interviews with 50 film directors. It was supposed to be my first book, and it took forever. I interviewed 79 movie directors for it, and then the publisher trimmed it down to 50. And Kevin Smith was one of the people in it. So Richard Linklater, the original Alamo Drafthouse Theater, which is in their old location in Austin, had an early screening of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And so I had made a deal with, it was going to be for the author photo on the back. It was going to be Richard on one side of me and Kevin Smith on the other. So we go and we meet him at the after party, and Richard Linklater just kept putting us off and putting us off and putting us off. And so my buddies, it was like Josh Barnett and Sean Westhoff, get their picture taken with Kevin Smith. I've just got my head in the picture because I think I'm going to get this picture. Well, ends up Kevin Smith has to leave before Richard Linklater. He will never come and take the fucking photo. Nothing against him. He's got shit to do more important than me, but it's like, so I didn't even get my fucking picture with Kevin Smith, man. And I'd interviewed him and I'd done all this shit, and what are you going to do? But my head is sideways in a photo somewhere.
That's a life lesson though.
Right.
I mean, from now on,
take advantage of the thing you can get.
Yeah, get it right then and there. If you can get both of them later, great.
Right.
What?
Bird in the hand.
Yeah.
Get in.
Bird in the fucking hand. That's what that is. But what was funny was we had an argument going, the three of us, forever about, it's a dorky argument, about who would win between Batman and Superman. And so Kevin Smith, is a big comic guy, and he's written a bunch of comics and stuff. So we asked Kevin Smith, and he's like, what was funny was Sean always said Batman. And I mean, I like Batman. Batman's just smart though. Superman could be 3 miles away and just blow, and he would fucking fly off the earth or whatever, Yeah. So anyway, Kevin Smith is like, well, no one but an idiot would pick Batman. And and he's like clearly Superman. And so we were able to go, in your face, man.
I think the argument is that everybody that sides with Batman thinks that Superman is going to continue to be this pure good Superman,
right?
And he's going to do everything in his power not to kill Batman,
right?
But doesn't Batman have the same ethical conundrum? He doesn't want to kill.
It depends
people.
on what issue.
Depends on which movie you're watching.
Yeah, that's true.
Same with Superman.
Yeah.
But what's funny, in one of my novels, it's called Let It Kill You. It's from the Bukowski quote, "Find what you love and let it kill you." And it was about a hitman that his mark is the one. It's kind of a basic plot, but it goes somewhere completely fucking off the rails. But he's supposed to kill this woman who's like the daughter of somebody. And anyway, he falls in love with her and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, there's a part where he and her are actually going in to murder all these people. So that kind of gives you an idea where the story goes. But they're going in to murder somebody, and he looks at her and he says, I just had a thought. And she's like, what's that? And he's like, Superman is the shittiest superhero ever. So it's one of those things where they get into this, off-the-wall conversation about, and, I realize he is the first, but Superman is a really shitty superhero. I'm sorry, because he's so generic. And the fact that, the only way you can beat him is this bullshit kryptonite, which somehow, even though they find it all the fucking time in the comics, it's really hard to find. It's supposed to be, It's just he's too perfect. He's too bland, and the fact that he just changes his hair into the S curl and all of a sudden puts glasses on, or takes his glasses off. No one knows, including his lover, who he is just nonsense. But I realized for 1927 or whenever they made that was.
My ex-wife always says that I would be the guy that couldn't tell that Clark Kent was Superman. Because I'm so bad with faces.
Right. But no one could. You wouldn't be alone.
It's the.
But I agree. He's like the worst.
He's the
worst,
most generic, shitty.
The flaws are what make a character.
It's
in my opinion.
Little arguments, little details, little things like that I've always loved about Tarantino's writing.
Right.
Superman in particular. At the end of Kill Bill Volume 2, and talking about how Clark Kent is the embodiment.
Oh, right.
Of how he sees humanity.
Go
ahead. No,
you.
No, the best one obviously is, well, I don't know if it's the best, but what Like a Virgin's about.
Oh, I love that in Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir. But the best
Dick.
The best part of that scene is that you've got three different things going on.
Right.
He's talking about a metaphor for big dicks, and fucking Joe's over there counting.
And Joe's talking about all these things, and I got Toby Chung going over here with his big dick in my other ear, and What I was going to say, you said something about the end of Kill Bill. What's interesting, I was talking about those Japanese movies, the baby cart movies. Mm-hmm. So one of those is playing, it's Shogun's Assassin, the movie that she watches with the little girl, Bibi, at the end of Kill Bill. Yeah. So this is just a funny little tie-in from an earlier part.
Little bits that he's got in there. But, two questions I have, and this is kind of encompassing everything that we've talked about so far. But two questions I have. First one, favorite Tarantino movie. Doesn't have to be one that he directed, just
Pulp Fiction.
Favorite
True
one
Romance is number 2, which he did not direct, but they're close. But I Pulp Fiction for me is just the one. True Romance I love. And True Romance was a big inspiration for the one I told you, Let It Kill You.
Yeah.
And look, people do all the time say my stories are Tarantino-esque. Yeah. I don't pretend to be as good as Tarantino, but you know what? He and I are doing a different thing, but he's my inspiration. He's absolutely. Yeah. And when I sat down, I looked and I said, there's no books that are really like Tarantino.
Right.
There's not.
Yeah, there's
Even
not.
since I've been doing it, I thought I would find others. I'm just not finding them. Mm-hmm. They're just not there. And I don't know. It's a niche that, but that dude, I don't give a shit. People can complain about his stuff, whatever they want. I get it. It's cool. But that dude is my spirit animal. I don't give a fuck. And it was an honor to talk to him. And, interviews with him can go either good or really bad. Mm. So I was nervous as fuck, but it was amazing. And then he called me back 5 minutes later to tell me some more shit. And it was great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what was your other question?
Favorite Stephen King?
My books?
Yeah.
Pet Sematary. And I know I don't think it's his best. I think even though they talk about all these other things, The Dark Tower or The Stand as being his masterpiece, I think his masterpiece is it, but my favorite is Pet Sematary. Yeah. I love Pet Sematary. And I honestly have not loved much of his books, again, like Polinick, over the last decade or so, maybe 15 years. There's some occasionally that I like. I try to read them all. I've written 3 books about Stephen King.
Yeah.
Have you ever got to talk to Stephen King?
No, I haven't. I was really close to getting an interview with him in 1989, and then he got hit by that van. He had that famous accident.
Yeah.
I was going to interview him for the director's book. See, I find that if there's somebody famous and you want to interview them, if you can find a good reason to interview them about something they're not used to talking about, they like the idea of being able to talk about other shit.
Yeah.
So that was the approach. And anyway, that fell through. That didn't work out. So anything else? I think you said you had 3 questions. Did you lie?
No, just 2. Just the 2. But I'll add a third. Have you read or listened to Lisi's story?
I have. I think it's very well written.
I think that's my favorite.
Is it?
Yeah.
I keep thinking I need to go. I think I read it at a time when, for whatever reason, I wasn't receptive to it. Mm-hmm. But I guess it's about somebody I was reading just the other day. It's about him and his wife, essentially. I didn't know that, and it didn't connect with me at the time, but I really need to go back and reread it because I do think it was a very well written book.
My biggest complaint with him, and we've talked about it before, is a lot of times he does a beautiful job of fleshing out characters.
He's the best at that, I think. You're going to say something about the endings?
yeah.
The best, probably the best, my favorite example is Under the Dome.
Right.
Man, that book was incredible. The characters were alive. I mean, and there were tons of characters because it was a whole town. The ending, it was like, oh shit, man, I'm at like 1,300 pages. I need to end this shit.
Right.
Alien Ant Farm.
Right. You know,
Smooth Criminal.
Yeah.
You know what's? I do like some of those endings that, like, people get pissed about the ambiguous endings, and I do like those on occasion. I do.
I think those are stronger.
Those piss
actually.
people off, but I like them because you're still thinking about them after you're done. But some of the endings are not that great. But the ambiguous ones, you know, also piss people off.
Well, then you can talk about what do you think happened?
Right.
Like, what's your theory?
Right.
You know, and I like that too. But I'm not as much of a King like aficionado as probably you guys are. I haven't read a ton of his books, but I'm a huge fantasy fan.
Right.
I read the shit out of fantasy. So people told me, "Oh, you'll love The Dark Tower. You'll love it."
Right.
Read it. I fucking hated those books.
Well, you know what? I got to tell you. Oh, you read them all?
Yeah.
Because those are the ones that I didn't really read. I read the first one and was completely bored. But I've had a couple people that have written books about them that told me that if you start with the second book, that it's that it picks up a lot, you know, and
it does pick up. And there was one of them in there that was, I would say, was good. But the series as a whole, I was just like,
I've just never been a fantasy guy. I like Game of Thrones. I don't really, I have to admit, I feel bad. I don't really like the books that much because to me, they kind of drag. They're 8 minutes. I don't really love big books, even though I will read them. I gravitate towards smaller ones because I have a shitty attention span, I think. But mostly, you know, and I had to be, my ex-wife tried to get me just to watch Game of Thrones. I'm like, I'm not fucking watching Game of Thrones. Ron, our old friend, tried to get me to watch Game of Thrones. I'm not fucking watching it. Then I watched it. I was like, oh, this is fucking dark. That was the key for me, dark.
Right.
I haven't watched it yet.
As soon as, I'm not going to say what, but anybody that knows, as soon as they did that, you know, I gave him his crown of gold. That was the part where I was like, I'm on fucking board. It's about 3 episodes in. I'm like, I'm going to watch this, you know, and that was it.
Did you complete all seasons?
Oh yeah. I didn't like the ending that much.
No, well, they rushed the fuck out of the ending, and
But you know what's funny? I do like activism for this group Adapt, which is a disability group.
Yeah.
And get arrested with them a lot, doing protests and shit. And we were in Washington D.C. when the finale was on. And luckily we had HBO in our room, and I was like, I'm going to fucking watch this. Well, I was sharing my room with a older guy that went to sleep at like 7, and he snored super loud. So I do need to rewatch that finale because I was sitting there trying to hear it through snores. I mean, I already think it's flawed. I like some of the idea of it and the last season, but then I don't know. But anyway, watching it through snores probably wasn't the ideal way to view that.
Yeah. My issue with the ending of that is just like,
if he's going to watch it, you probably shouldn't.
Well, yeah, I don't disagree with the way that they had it end, but they didn't give you the story to justify the ending.
Right.
They just rushed into that.
But
and
the idea of the rest
sense.
of the end of the season, I actually like, and people bitched about it, you know, about one character kind of changing.
Yeah.
But I like that idea, you know, that power corrupts. Absolutely, you know.
Yes.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
I do think that was the intention all along.
Do too.
I think that they just like skipped to the end.
But the ending sucked.
Yeah.
And it was a short season too. It just, it sucked.
I think the showrunners just said like, we probably should do this for like 3 more seasons, but we want to wrap this up. Let's just do it.
Well, I think that was basically HBO says, okay, this is how much you got. You know,
right.
Get it done.
Probably.
So what's the thing with the spinoffs? Are they still coming? There were supposed to be 2 or 3 spinoffs.
Are
they dead now?
Well, I heard one of them fell through. At least with the Weiss and Benoff, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
And actually, I was talking about this with a friend of mine the other day, Craig. You guys know. And he made the comment that those guys couldn't even get a Critters remake now. So I died.
Critters.
I died when he said that. He goes, "You can use that." I said, "Thanks."
Like Platinum Dunes that does all the remakes. They won't return his calls.
Didn't they remake Critters? Or was it Ghoulies? So one of them got remade.
I think it was Ghoulies.
Ghoulies?
I think so.
I don't want to see a remake of either of those.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to rush out. Where are we at on time, brother?
Oh no, we're at about an hour 30. We can wrap it up.
We can talk a little more if you guys want. I'm having fun.
Yeah, no,
this is fun.
We're having a great time. Yeah,
this is great.
All right, yeah, man, we really appreciate you.
I mean,
so I did a book on porn stars.
Yeah,
that was kind of cool. Like if we're just looking for shit to talk about. So whenever people say, "What's the coolest thing you've ever done?" See, I will tell you this, because if I ever write a memoir, it's going to be fucking cool. But people will say, "Is this story true or false?" I will always tell you how you'll know it's a true story, because all of my stories have some really cool part about it, and then it ends with something shitty happening to me. And that's how. Okay, like I do a show with Tech Nine. Forget all the words. You know, I mean, it's always get a record deal. Company goes out of business. Like these are how all my life. You know, so I don't know if you guys are old enough or watched any porn, but Jill Kelly was the second biggest female porn star of the 1990s behind Jenna Jameson, and so she was one of the ladies that I interviewed for the porn book. And at that time, Jenna Jameson's book had just came out, and he was making a lot of money. And so I asked her, would you be interested in writing a memoir? And she said yes. So I said, well, this is going to be great. We're going to make a lot of money. And I also at another time asked Ron Jeremy, I'm either in or worked on 3 movies that Ron Jeremy's in, none of which are porn. I wrote a scene with Ron Jeremy in a really shitty movie called Slaughter Party, in which he gets slaughtered. So anyway, and he told me, I'll only do a book if I get $1 million up front. Well, he did a book, and I assure you he did not get $1 million. He might get 1 million years in prison now, but...
Yeah, so I heard he's in jail.
Yeah. Like 18 more charges or something came up last week. But
how do you vet any of that? You know what I was saying?
Yeah.
So, well, it was crazy. So I go out there, and Jill Kelly's great, and this is a woman that I masturbated to frequently in the 1990s. I'm not going to lie. She was. They called her an editor of Club magazine. This was, back in the magazine days. Club was one that I worked at a gas station, and they would have Club magazine. So every month I would conveniently steal an issue of Club magazine and take it home. And so here I am sitting with this woman that I've masturbated to probably 100 times. I mean, it's not like, that doesn't happen every day. You just sit around somebody, but it's different when it's someone famous, And so we go to her home. Here's the crazy shit about her home. Her home was originally lived in and built for Clark Gable. Now, really? I'm thinking, how crazy is that? It went from Clark Gable to a porn star. Anyway, so she had like 2 or 3 black Escalades, and this is way back. This is when I was out there. It was when, I want to say, what was it, 2004? Because it was when the news came out when I was down there that Dave Chappelle had disappeared from the Chappelle Show. And I was also there to do that book with Gary Graver. I was going to do both of them. And so it was so the cool story is I spent the night at Jill Kelly's house. Uncool part is she disappeared the next day. We never spoke again, and we did not have sex. But the funny thing is, it was the weirdest fucking night ever. So I don't know. I will not say that she was using any drugs or anything, but she had some of the characteristics of people I hadn't been around that were tweaking. And I don't know if that means anything, but maybe she just had like 80 energy drinks. I can't say, and
years and years of built up cocaine.
Right. Who knows? But so anyway, it's me and her, this other porn star that was staying with her. She had hangers on. They were just chilling in the house. Like there was a dude in the living room that just like gave me some meth. Like this was way back when I would do that shit, and I've since learned my lesson. But so anyway, and like it's like 2 different things happened. One, this alarm goes off, and she gets a call, and she's like, "There's an alarm going off at my studio." She owned her own porn company, Jill Kelly Productions, I think. So we rush down there. She thinks somebody's broken in. Well, it's just me, her 2 black labs, I think. Maybe it was 1 black lab. It was a big ass black lab. And this other girl, I don't know what we're going to do. She doesn't call the cops. So we rush down there. Somehow the alarm had just been tripped. But we go in her office. Oh, I'm trying to remember the order of this. Again, my memory is shitty. We go inside, and I don't remember. We were only there long enough for her to turn off the alarm. But she opens up this drawer, and it's filled with books. And I'm like, well, what are those? And she goes, oh, those are the books of the other writers that were supposed to write my autobiography at different times. So... this should have been a giant red flag, but I'm thinking, no, I'm the motherfucker that gets to do it. Fuck those guys. Yeah. And these are books by some big, like Rolling Stone writers and shit. Like these are books of people that I knew. So I think, well, fuck those guys, So we go back out. She locks up. We're all 3 getting back in the Escalade. And I'm pretty sure it was an Escalade. It was a big black SUV. And the black lab jumps in the car and it gets its paw caught in the little, whatever that little runner is on the side of it had like a runner on the side.
Yeah.
And it fell and broke its leg and it was just hanging there.
God,
so
damn.
I have to lift this black lab up and she's freaking out. And she was like acting like, like, thank you so much. You saved my black lab. So we go back to her house and I'm hanging out and I'm trying to be the professional guy. I'm not going to try anything, and I mean, who's going to do that?
You saved her black lab. You shouldn't have to.
Right. But I will say this. So at 2, and this is where I probably fucked up. At 2 a.m, I'm sitting on her bed with her as she's, and she's sitting, and then she's checking her emails, her fan mails, and we're talking, and her bedroom has pictures of Marilyn Monroe all over it. Like she's into this Marilyn Monroe thing. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, and also because I was intimidated. I'm just going to tell you, I was a little intimidated. But I'm like, I'm not going to try that shit. I'm going to be because I want to write a book. I want a book.
Right,
a book will last forever. Sex with her and me is going to last about 30 seconds at that point. You know what I mean? So I do all the right shit. So the next morning, she says, she's going to go down to the office. She's going to do some other things. She wanted me to go. I said, I'm going to go back, change clothes, take a shower. I'll come back and I'll meet you. She disappears and never see her again. Don't know what happened. So that was a fucking weird story, right? It's just weird.
But you got the story.
I got the story.
You got the story.
It's like half a cool story, though. Yeah. It's like almost a cool story.
Hey, you get merit points for being professional.
Yeah.
Fuck that. If I could do it again, I'd take the 30 seconds.
Hindsight's 2020, man.
But what are you going to do?
So, yeah. Anyway. Wow.
It's a pretty weird story, but it's true.
Wow.
That's why I say if I ever write a memoir, it's going to be filled with fucked up stories. None of them end well, but they're...
So, and I don't follow her. I don't know. Is she? So she's still doing anything? Is she?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't really, I was never like a big connoisseur, but I would, check out the magazines and stuff. And, like a lot of guys, I'd watch about 5 minutes of a porn, turn it off and be done,
Right.
You don't really have, and they were kind of interesting to me when they had plots. Like I thought that was kind of cool. The only reason we did that book was for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to kind of learn about that world because I don't know that much about it, or I do now. And 2, porn stars are easy to access. They're easier to access than, say, like you can get the Tom Cruise of the porn world easier than you can get the Tom Cruise.
Hollywood,
yeah. And so I thought, well, this is an opportunity to do a kind of an interesting book. And
that kind of goes back to some of the stuff that you were saying earlier about, why do people do what they do, or why
right.
And why would she invite you to come write or talk about things and then just blow you off?
I don't know.
That's
one of my theories is that she's got a story that I think she's scared to tell her story in a way. Like she had a husband who was also an adult film star. I believe his name was Cal Jammer, which was his porn name. And they had split up, and I don't know the whole story, but supposedly, as I've read it, he committed suicide on her porch with her standing there. And I'm sure that things like that would be really hard to tap into.
Yeah.
And I can understand that. Even with the memoir I'm doing with that actress now, Erica Gavin, I think that's part of the reason it's taken so long is I think there are a lot of things that she's diving into that are hard for her, and I mean, that's her story. I'm not going to get into it, but it's just, if you live a long life, most of us are going to have a lot of shitty things that happen. And if you want to be real about them and really open yourself up, it's a hard process.
Right.
And especially for the world.
Yeah.
And
then, it's if you're in the light, the barrage of,
and part of the reason I don't write a memoir is because half of my family would disown me or hate me, never speak to me again, and memoirs are hard. And so I have to give it to this lady. She's really opening up in her memoir, and those are the best memoirs. And I feel like why do it if you're not going to be completely right.
Yeah.
Right. I am supposed to do a memoir on my heart transplant, and I just haven't been able to bring myself to do it because it's a lot. Just that, even though there's nothing embarrassing there, it's just,
Well, you yourself know that journey is probably really difficult for a lot of folks, and I don't know. This is me saying, hey, man, you should do that.
Right. No, so. I'm going to, because I want it to be out there for other people to read, and
probably would help you to.
It would.
To revisit those emotions and kind of put it behind you. I mean, I'm just guessing,
right?
But
You know, revisiting your heart transplant and you talking about how you go to some hospitals that let you hold your heart.
Yeah.
You know, I told you there's like no fucking way. I just realized that, yes, I totally would. I would straight up be like, Kalima.
Right?
Kalima. Shakti day.
I thought you were gonna say I'd be like,
No.
taking a bite out of it or some shit.
The old Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Why I didn't think of that at the time.
know.
I'm like, it's just, he's talking about it. I'm like, fucking Kalima.
Or like in From Dusk Till Dawn, where they take the heart and stick the pencil in it, and then he falls on the ground and dead.
Tom Savini.
There you go, Savini. Savini was great in that.
Yes, he was.
My experiences with him have not been wonderful, but you know what? I think he's amazing.
You know, and attention to detail given to Robert Rodriguez. So, like Desperado, he reveals the crotch gun.
The crotch
right?
gun.
Right.
Yep,
You know,
yep.
everybody watched that movie like, whoa, what the fuck was that?
And then
Guess
they don't
what?
use it, right?
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yep.
That's right.
So shit.
Really, you put Robert Rodriguez together with Quentin Tarantino and good shit happens.
That was a cool ass movie.
Yeah, it was.
I don't think he gets enough credit. I really
It does.
don't.
You know what?
You know what? I want to give a shout out to fucking Robert Rodriguez for the Alita film, dude. I loved the shit out of that movie.
That was pretty good.
I thought that was great.
It sounds like we're going to get another one too.
I want a
Does it?
sequel so bad.
Yeah. Sounds like we're
I
going to.
loved it.
But in with that being said, though, I feel like, I don't know, the 90s, I don't know if you want to, I mean, I'm sure there's a golden era of Hollywood, but I think the 90s was so good for film. But I mean, compared to what we're getting now, I just feel like a lot of things are just
Well, I feel like everything was better.
just so
you know what I mean?
cookie
Because this is a
cutter, so-
horrible. They're remaking everything. Like, did you see now the Golden Girls is being remade? Like everything. And the thing is, there are so many good books that exist that they won't. Why not make movies of those motherfuckers?
right.
You know,
Please.
Lazy.
God.
that's
Well,
lazy.
but see, here's the thing.
Because it's name recognition. But that doesn't even work because most of them bomb anyway.
Well, you
Yeah.
know, I would say, you know, we went through, was it the late 90s or was it the early 2000s? So we went through the remake craze, right? And those were like direct remakes.
Charlie's Angels.
But we're trying to,
Which has been remade again.
Yes.
we're just, we're simply trying to remake what was then, just modernize it. Okay. Then we went through the
Reboot.
the Harry Potter era, where then you got the Hunger Games, you got you got all Twilight,
Let's
you got
put-
all those. Let's take
Put
all these
people
young
into groups and
young adult movies, and now we're jumping back to remakes, but they're all remakes flipped on their heads.
yeah.
So like they're trying to do something different.
Have you seen the trailer for Freaky?
No,
No.
but I know what you're talking about.
It's like Freaky Friday made into a horror movie, and it looks fucking kind of cool. It's by the same guy that did Happy Death Day, which is basically Groundhog's Day.
Which
so he's
was
taking all
really
these
good.
old comedies and making them into fucking cool horror movies. And I don't know.
Blumhouse, or is it Blumhouse?
It's with Blumhouse, but I think it's the same director or the same writer. I'm not sure. But,
Happy Death Day was actually really
and
good.
I was really skeptical, but it is good.
Yeah.
And this Freaky, it looks fucking crazy. It's Vince Vaughn is a serial killer, and he kills this
Yes,
this teenage.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
My
I
wife
haven't
was-
watched it, but yes.
My wife
yes.
saw the trailer and was just telling me about it last
It
night.
looks so
Yeah.
fucking fun. Now I don't know if it's going to be, but the trailer looks fucking awesome.
Now I need to watch it.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I thought, this guy, whoever's doing this is brilliant. They're taking old. You know what comedy I'd like to make into a horror movie? What about Bob? Because it's about this far from when he's stalking him and shit.
Yeah.
Because in real life, you'd be waiting to get fucking murdered at any minute. Bob even murders marries his sister.
Don't touch What About Bob. Come on.
I love What About Bob?
I'd like to see a horror spin on Three's Company.
There you go. You could
Yeah.
come and knock on our door.
Which the question
We've been
is,
waiting for you.
which one is the killer?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Fucking Mrs. Roper. No one would expect
Right.
Mrs. Roper.
So let's talk about the two Mr. Ropers now, because they're supposed to be brothers. So what happened to the one guy leaves and then his brother moves in with his wife? What kind of freaky shit is going on here?
Yeah.
I've been wondering about this for a long time.
That's the landlord game.
You had Norman Fell and Don Knotts
Yeah.
as the two Mr. Ropers. You know,
Right.
Revealing my age here on this.
No, I watched the shit out of Three's Company as a kid, man.
Nope.
I'm lost.
You're okay.
Yeah.
I just missed the cut.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm about to turn 45, so.
I'm 47.
There you go. I'm right there with you, man.
I'm 42.
So
I'm 27.
You're a
27.
baby.
You're full of shit.
You're about to die.
How old are you, though? About 30?
I'm 39.
I was going to say, you're up there. I mean, not up there, but you're fucking below me. I mean, it's weird when age creeps in on you, because the other day, I was making fun of Tom Brady saying, old motherfucker needs to quit, and I realized he's way the fuck younger than me. But I mean, but you know what? Then I'm not trying to play pro football either, though. You know, and he's still good for his age. I just hate him.
You're getting that guy sitting on the couch.
But if he joined the couch,
I could have threw that touchdown pass.
I enjoyed the shit watching him lose.
I loved watching him lose. But you know what? As much as I hate him, if he joined the Cowboys, all of a sudden I would like him. And I kind of I hate liking the Cowboys, but at the same point, I've liked them all my life. What are you going to do? But you know what? Like before Deion Sanders came to the Cowboys, when he was with the 49ers and he was fucking us up, I said, fuck Deion. I don't. And then a year later, he's with Dallas, and I'm like, oh, I love Deion.
I love you.
Neon Deion, goddammit.
I'm kind of that way. I'm a Broncos fan. So I'm like, Melvin Gordon, like, fuck Melvin Gordon. He's like, no, he's like, all right, let's go, Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, he looked all
fumbled
right.
the other night.
Oh, I was just saying, well, from what I watched, he looked all right.
Yeah, he scored a touchdown. He did. It was hit or miss.
Yeah.
I don't know. I won't go into it. I'm a little butthurt that they lost by a field goal, 17 seconds left.
Yeah, that sucks.
It is starting to get a little warm in here. You were right.
It's
creeping up a little.
Yeah, you turn the fans off.
I want one more question before we'll let you go.
Sure.
I want you to tell us about Adapt a little bit.
Adapt. Yeah, Adapt is this great group. I only got involved with them about 2 years ago. They're this really neat group. They go out and they do a lot of activism. The majority of people in Adapt are in wheelchairs. But there are people like me that had a heart transplant or, what they call invisible disabilities, because I was also in a coma for 3 weeks, years ago. And so I've never been the same since then, because what's funny real quick, when you see movies like Kill Bill or Hard to Kill, the Seagal movie, they're in a coma, they wake up and they start whooping ass. Now, obviously we know that's not real, but I couldn't walk. Like your body atrophies it was 3 weeks and my body atrophied. I had to learn how to walk again. So I've never been the same. So anyway, that's my disability. So Adapt is this organization that we meet with legislators. We do a lot of stuff in Washington, D.C. We try to get laws passed that help the disabled. Right now, a big issue is Medicaid expansion. It's kind of fun to get arrested at those, honestly, but it's an important cause, So it's sort of, I'm not going to lie, as I've gotten older, I don't want to get in trouble, but at the same point, it lets me act out for a good cause.
Right.
But, if you saw, when they were trying to pass the new healthcare bill in 2017, all the protesters that got carried out in wheelchairs, that was Adapt. I wasn't there yet, but that was us. So it's just a really neat organization. They've been around since the 70s. I've talked to some people about doing a book on their history sometime, because I think they are right at the forefront of disability, civil rights ever since, like I think 1974 or something like that. We've got a photographer named Tom Olin. If I ever do the book, he's going to do it with me. He's got beautiful black and white photos all through that period. Different things, and sometimes over time, they've been roughhoused by the cops and all this stuff. But you know what? It's an important cause. And when we talk about civil rights, nobody ever talks about the disabled. And frankly, any one of us, anyone can be disabled in the blink of an eye. You can go out and get in a car accident. I've seen people, I worked with a man years ago that had a head injury. He had tripped in his house. He hit his head. And after that, he had a head injury. He was never the same. And, you can become disabled just like that. But people don't think about disabled people unless they are disabled or they have someone in their family that's disabled.
Which this hits us in a sore spot. I mean, we were in a band named Command, and our lead guitar player, freak accident. He was constructing a suspension bridge, and he wasn't locked in properly.
Oh, wow.
He got bucked off, fell 15 feet into a ravine, landed on his neck, and he is paralyzed from the neck down now.
Oh, wow.
And can never play music again. He has since started writing. He has a book on Amazon now.
Good. About his experiences?
No, he's working on that.
On one.
Good.
He's actually,
but this one's fiction.
This one's fiction. Do you recall the name of the book? I can't think off the top of my head. I want to give it a shout out though, since we're talking about it.
I've got it.
But that's Spencer Smith, hell of a guy, super intelligent
guy. That's interesting. So, good for him. Yeah. I mean, not good for him that he,
Well, yeah, but
what I mean, that he persevered and he kept fighting and he didn't give up.
Exactly. He hasn't got up, or he hasn't given up, and he has.
I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, but the Trihymen Prima, or Trihymen Prima, Book 1, The Beginning, Trihymen Prime 1.
Yeah, there we go.
It's on Amazon, Kindle format, 99 cents.
I believe it's a fantasy kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Super smart guy, super talented guy. Just come through some hardship and you find another road to take,
Right.
So it's inspiring.
No, it's amazing.
But, yeah. So I just want to give a shout out.
No, I think that's
subject.
amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's great. So, and as far as him doing the book on his life, sometimes those things are really hard to, especially with the, because I'm a writer and I've done so much writing over the last 25 years, people think, people thought it would be an obvious thing for me to write about my transplant. I really didn't want to. And even now it's hard for me I know it will sell and I know it will, but it's so hard to relive that.
Sure.
And, what's funny, I did one short story about a girl that got a heart transplant, and people thought it was going to be this touching story because I shared it on Facebook, but that's not what I write.
Right.
And I said, don't you people know what I write? But it was kind of how I started dealing with it, because it's about a girl that had a heart transplant and she's going through all of the after stuff, and the family, you can meet the donor's family, and so, and I still haven't had the courage to send that letter. I've got it written and I need to write it or I need to send it in case if something ever happens to me, so they know that their son, or husband's organs went to use and are appreciated. But it's about this girl, and she writes the letter and she gets it, and she has a conversation with the mother, and they're kind of connecting, and the mother invites her to their house for Thanksgiving. And her father asks, do you want me to go? And she says, no, I think there's a thing I need to do alone. And she goes, and what it basically comes down to is that and it builds up kind of slowly, but what it gets to is that the mother has a shrine to her lost daughter, and the only thing that she doesn't have is the heart. So she wants it back at the end.
Damn.
And it's in my last collection, which is called Crazy Ass Stories for Crazy Ass People, which came out last year. And then I've got another collection coming out, I think in October. I love writing short stories, but sometimes it's hard to find time to do them, and trying to fit in all the other things, because short stories really don't sell very well.
Right.
Those are the but I want to put together a big book next year with stories from all of the different ones, with the best of all of them, and I do like writing them. But anyway, I didn't mean to get us off.
No, that's great. Well, we're going to wrap it up here in a second. But is there anything that you're working on or coming out soon that you want to just let people be aware of, or let people know how to reach you on social media, any of that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a Facebook page called Andy Rausch, or I think author Andy Rausch. That's Rausch. I have 2 books coming out within the next month and a half. One is Carnival of Souls, which is coming out from Happy Cloud Media is the name of the company. They just did Tom Savini's book, and then and that's a novelization. And then I have a short story collection I'm really proud of. I went with a smaller publisher called Terror Tract. I went with them because my oldest daughter is an artist, and I wanted to use her artwork for the cover. And most places make you go with whatever they want.
Right.
And I went with the smaller one because they let me use her artwork. And I also did the name of this story. It's funny. The title isn't the greatest title, but it's a short story collection. The title was to fit the picture. My daughter had this picture I kind of liked. It was done with computer. It was like computer art. She does all the different kinds, but it had all these snakes of different colors on it. And I was thinking, well, what the fuck kind of story? What do I come up with that fits that? So this is the wait for this cheese. Stories. And anyway, and I also co-wrote a story with my 10-year-old when she was 9, And that's going to be in this one too. She had a monster story idea, and I said, well, what if we, made this bigger? And so there's a little artwork from her in it as well. So this is just a special little side project where I got to work with my kids.
That's awesome.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So, and that should be coming out soon. They're all available on Amazon or wherever. So
Awesome.
Well, I'm going to be listening to some stories here soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I'm super grateful for Darryel, introducing you to us.
This has been fun. Thank you, guys.
Now,
thank you.
I've been looking for new things to read. So now I've got a good list going on.
There you go.
I mean, a Stephen King fan, Tarantino fan, Chuck Palahniuk fan.
I knew he'd fit in.
He's morbid. Yeah.
Well, I would say my actual crime books are very dialogue driven, like the Tarantino
that's
stuff.
awesome.
And people do generally praise the dialogue. I mean, I don't brag much, but I am good with the dialogue. I mean, Until One of Us Is Dead, I think that's why I like it, is because it's different. It's not dialogue driven. It's just really introspective and dark. But the other stuff is dialogue driven. So
Fuck it, I'm going to dive into it all.
do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, you've been Off the Edge with Matt, Zach, Darryel, and author Andy Rausch. Until next time, be well, everybody. Thanks a lot.